Hello everyone, I'm Dawn. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for visiting with me today. So this is going to be a difficult video. Most of them are. In this video, we are going to discuss the tragic death of a 12-year-old boy at a therapy camp. You know, the kind of camps where rich people send their troubled children they send their troubled children to them instead of getting them proper professional mental health treatment. And these therapy camps, although there may be some good ones, they have gained a pretty ugly reputation for traumatizing kids between the ages of 10 to 17 who are likely suffering from mental illness and ADHD, mental illness, even autism. Instead of receiving appropriate mental health care, they're sent to these often unregulated and often non-accredited camps where they receive maltreatment from undertrained, undereducated staff and that have negligent leadership. And several children have died at these camps or as a result from treatment they've received at these types of camps. In February, a 12-year-old boy from New York died after less than 24 hours at a wilderness therapy camp, Trails, Carolina, in Lake Toxaway, North Carolina. It's just east of Chattanooga. And his name was released on one article I read, but his family did not want his name released, so I'm not going to say it. But it has been determined the cause of death is asphyxiation and the manner of death is homicide. The boy who he suffered from migraines, ADHD, and he had social issues, was transported to the $700 a day camp by two escorts where they come in the middle of the night and take the kid. Hours after arriving at the camp between February 2nd and 3rd, the boy was told to sleep in a fully enclosed bivvy with an attached alarm to alert counselors if he tries to get out. Like a fully enclosed bivvy. It looks like a camp coffin. And he did leave to sleep outside of the sack, but staff woke him up and made him get back in it. I know, just leave him alone and let him sleep, but they didn't. And according to reports, the internal mesh bivvy door, like there's a mesh one, like intense, it was torn, so the outer weather-resistant door was used instead, and that was to secure the opening with the alarm, basically sealing up the whole bivvy with the outer layer. And that restricted airflow. Checks were made throughout the evening, throughout the night, but due to the opaque layer of the bivvy being completely closed, he could not be seen. So they couldn't see if he was having trouble breathing or anything like that. And the counselors tried to wake him in the morning, but he wasn't moving. He wasn't responding to them at all. And counselors tried to resuscitate the boy, but when emergency medical providers told them he had probably been dead for hours by the time they had arrived. It's worth noting, a week after the 12-year-old's death, a former camper by the name of Gertrude Siegel, she filed a lawsuit against Trails, alleging staff dismissed her pleas for help after she was SA'd by a fellow camper. And they told her basically be quiet and forget about it. And this was when she was 12 years old in 2016. It's also worth noting in 2014, 17-year-old Alec Lanson was found dead in a nearby stream where he laid for 2 weeks after running away from the camp, the Trails camp. So the Transylvania County Sheriff's Office state that they are investigating the 12-year-old boy's death, but that the camp isn't being fully cooperative and no arrests have been made, but they do have suspects. And the North Carolina Attorney General is considering charges against the camp as well. And they have also, the camp's license was revoked, so there's been no campers there since then. So after the 12-year-old's death, there's been no campers there, and they are facing a string of lawsuits. Now this next part is going to be kind of long. I'm going to read the autopsy report, or the summarization of it at least. Okay, so I have his entire autopsy report. I'm not going to read the whole thing because there is a lot of text, but I am going to read the summary of findings, and we might go over a few little details in it. So it lists his name, his date of birth, that he's a male, the name of the pathologist, the order and provider. And so the subject, the child, he expired on February 3rd, 2024. He was autopsied on February 6th, 2024, and the report was completed on 6/19/2024. And this was in Transylvania County. So the final diagnosis was smothering, asphyxia, and contusions of the left lower extremity. Summary of findings. The cause of death is asphyxia due to smothering. The manner of death is homicide. No anatomic cause of death was determined at the time of autopsy. No significant natural disease was present to have caused or contributed to death. Non-specific findings included swelling of the brain. Mild bruising was present on the left thigh and leg without significant internal injuries. Age-adjusted growth charts indicate the decedent was between the 50th and 75th percentile for height and between the 5th and 10th percentile for weight. A SA kit was collected at the time of autopsy and results were negative, as reported by law enforcement. No physical evidence of trauma was noted on examination. Toxicologic testing of postmortem femoral blood samples detected elevated levels of, cyproheptadine and fluoxetine and its metabolite, which were likely artificially elevated due to postmortem redistribution. Liver tissue levels of fluoxetine and its metabolite were within normal ranges, and these findings were discussed with the chief toxicologist at the North Carolina Toxicology Laboratory, who is in agreement with this determination. Testing did not detect an elevated or toxic level of clonidine. Testing of vitreous eye fluid detected no dehydration, diabetes mellitus, or kidney impairments. His medications were sequestered and reviewed independently by law enforcement and the medical examiner. The only irregularity noted was the absence of 3 clonidine tablets. No medical administration records were identified for the decedent at the camp, and it is unclear if he took any of the missing medication. According to Transylvania County Medical Examiner, investigative reports in the Transylvania County Sheriff's Office, the decedent had a history of anxiety, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and migraines. He had no known seizure disorder or prior seizures. Due to ongoing behavioral issues, he was brought from his home in New York to the Trails Carolina Wilderness Program at the request of his family. He reportedly had no health complaints or abnormal behavior during travel or after travel. He brought with him all needed and appropriate medications for at least 30 days. He had been at the camp for less than 24 hours when he was found unresponsive in a cabin with other adolescent attendees and adult counselors. According to protocol, the decedent was placed to sleep in a bivvy, a small camping enclosure, with a sleeping mat and sleeping bag according to program protocol. The program's protocol required the bivvy to be placed on top of a thick plastic sheet, which was folded up the sides in the form of a canoe. The opening to the bivvy was then secured with an alarm device such that If the occupant attempted to exit the bivvy, it would alarm and wake up the counselors in the cabin. According to investigative reports, the internal mesh bivvy door, which is normally used to secure the open, was torn, and the outer weather-resistant door was instead used to secure the opening of the alarm device. Based on multiple accounts and investigation, the decedent was placed asleep in the bivvy without incident. Sometime around 2300, he was noted to be moving around and making noise in the bivvy, and counselors removed him at that time. He relaxed and fell asleep outside the bivvy a short time later. Due to protocol, he was made to wake up and re-enter the bivvy, at which time he was again secured with the alarm device. A counselor did note he was moving around again about 1 to 2 hours after the initial incident, but stopped moving shortly after. Routine checks were performed throughout the night, but due to the outer opaque layer of the bivvy being closed, he could not be visualized. In the morning, the counselors attempted to wake him up, but noted he was not moving. Upon opening the bivvy, he was found to be turned around 180 degrees from the entrance, with his head at the enclosed end of the bivvy and his feet near the opening. He was also noted to not be wearing pants, which was a common practice for him at home. Resuscitation was attempted by camp personnel while emergency medical providers were summoned. After emergency medical personnel arrived, it was determined that he was already beyond life-saving measures due to rigor mortis being present, indicating he had likely been dead for several hours. It should be noted that a common warning on commercially available bivvy products indicate that the outer weather-resistant opening should not be fully secured, as it may lead to condensation and breathing restriction. This information was obtained on a basic web search. And then it just goes on, pretty much what we already discussed. So I was watching Nancy Grace, and there was a young lady that was a camper there when she was 12 years old, and she said that from the minute they got there, it was horrible. They were strip searched, which I think is highly inappropriate to do to children outside of a criminal facility. That's just my opinion. They were strip searched. They were not given appropriate bathroom breaks. They were forced to wear adult diapers and just mess themselves. And she said it was just a nightmare experience, that they were cold. They were given very thin layers. They weren't allowed to bundle up in the cold, because she was there. I think she said she was there in November and December at the time she was 12 years old. So, and that, she said more stuff too, but I couldn't really take it all in. It was just too much. But anyway, this is being investigated as a homicide. What I read and what I understand from police information is that the camp is not being cooperative. They claim they are being cooperative, but that is not the experience being reported by those investigating the case, the law enforcement investigating the case. They said they did their own investigation, but of course they're not going to find any wrongdoing. But anyway, that's it. I just wanted to talk about that real quick and get your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to everyone later.